Hello, I'm Elspeth Jackson from Ragged Life. I'm also the author of Rag Rugs, Pillows and More, and in this tutorial I'm going to be talking you through how you break down old items of clothing into the strips that you need for doing shaggy rag rugging and loopy rag rugging. It's all very simple and I hope you enjoy rag rugging. So I'm going to teach you how to turn this top into the strips you need to be able to do both the shaggy and the loopy technique. So the first step is to turn whatever item of clothing you're using inside out. And that's just so you can see where all of those pesky seams are. I actually use the seams in my rag rugging because I try and get as much out of one item of clothing as I possibly can. Pretty thrifty. But you can only cut with the line of the seam rather than across it. So after we've turned it inside out, the next step is we're going to almost reverse dressmake it. So sorry all you dressmakers, we're undoing all your hard work. And we're just going to cut along the edge, either the right or the left, of all of the major seams. So I'm just going to cut along there. So once you've cut down the two major seams down the side here, I've got two big blocks of fabric because mine was a vest top. It's now about working out what I can and can't use out of these seams. So most tops will have a traditional bottom hem to them. So first of all, I'm going to deal with that. So first of all, you're just going to cut on the inside of the stitching of the bottom hem. And then you've got this stitched line left on the fabric. So we're also going to have to deal with that. So I'm just going to cut probably about 1/2 centimetre to 1 centimetre wide strip along that bottom hem, because we're creating a strip out of that bottom seam. And there we go. Because at the end of my strip, I met another little seam, I'm just going to cut that off, and I'm going to do the same with this one, because those are going to be lumps if you leave them on your strip, and they're going to make it harder to rag rug with. So we're just going to discard them. But now we've got two perfectly good strips for doing rag rugging with. So I'm going to put them aside, and I'm going to repeat that process on every single side seam on my garment. So one complicated bit of this particular garment is we've almost got a different fabric on the top. I tend to deal with these as if they're a completely separate fabric. So I would cut them off like so. And I'll just cut that bit off because it's going to be a little bit thick. Any things like thick collars and stuff you're not going to be able to use, but generally normal side seams you can. I'm just going to get rid of that. And then what I would be left with would be perfectly usable strips, just in a different fabric for doing our rag rugging with. I'm going to put them with my other ones, and then I'm just going to deal with all of the other bits. So we've got a little bit of a collar here. And I cut in the air, but you can cut on the table absolutely fine. I'm just a bit strange and I've got used to cutting in the air because of the workshops I run. So once you've finished cutting all of the seams, bottom hems, bits and bobs off of your garment, you'll end up with a completely clean bit of fabric like this. Doesn't matter if it's not a regular shape and it's a little bit wonky, you can still follow all the steps I'm supposed to explain, just to pretend it's a completely regular shape. So mine is slightly longer from here to here than across the width. So I'm now going to fold this the longest way. So it's from your shortest edge to your shortest edge. I'm going to fold it the same direction again, then the same direction again. And you're going to end up with what looks like a kind of tube. And this is why I recommend really, really hardcore scissors, because we're now going to cut our strips by cutting along that tube of fabric. And this is the satisfying bit. So The width of strip that you're looking to create for both types of rag rugging, so the shaggy and the loopy one, is roughly about 1.5 centimeters wide. That's about kind of half an inch. It doesn't matter if it's slightly narrower, it doesn't matter if it's slightly wider, but if you're using a really thick fabric like a denim, you're going to want to cut your fabrics much narrower. So I'd probably do them about 1 centimeter, and you're just cutting one after the other along the tube. Doesn't matter if they end up a bit wiggly, mine are always going to turn out a bit strange, but it won't show up at all in your rag rugging. So at the beginning and end of the tube, you'll often have an edge which isn't entirely straight and is a bit jagged. Just pretend it's completely straight like the rest of it, because some of that strip at the end will be usable, and we try and get as much out of one single garment as we possibly can in rag rugging. So we're just going to finish like so. So that one's a little bit odd, but you never know, you may be able to use some of it. So if you're doing the loopy style of rag rugging, then this is as far as you have to go with the fabric prep. You're trying to create long strips of fabric, as long as possible really. However, if you're wanting to do the shaggy technique of rag rugging, we're going to have to go one step further. So now we need to turn all of these long strips into short strips for shaggy rag rugging using the gauge. So first of all, we're going to get 5 strips, and we're just going to hold them so the ends align at the top. I sometimes give these a little trim, like that, just to flatten off the ends, but you just want them all to be hanging kind of straight. You then get the gauge, you hold the ends of the strips so they're kind of vaguely aligned with this groove bit at the top of the gauge. And then what we're going to do is just wrap along and around the gauge. When you cross this groove at the top, you want to try and cross it quite flat to it. So you don't want to go very diagonal. It doesn't matter if your strips fold a bit when you wrap them round, and you can overlap them slightly, but you don't pull really tightly with the fabric, because if you do, it stretches it. So we're just going to trap any shorter bits in using the longer bits. And we're just going to go until we've got them all secured into the gauge. And then the next step is we're just going to cut down the groove at the top. And then the pieces that we've created will be all vaguely the right length for doing shaggy rag rugging. So that would be a normal piece. They're roughly about kind of 7 to 8 centimeters in length, or they're about kind of 2.5 inches, 3 inches long. Where strips didn't reach all the way around the gauge, you may have some little off-cut bits. You can just discard them because they can't be used. So now we've created our long strips for loopy rag rugging and our short strips for shaggy rag rugging. And now we need to learn how to do the 2 techniques. So head over to my other videos to see how to use these strips in a rag rug.